We are joined on the line by UFC bantamweight #1 contender Demetrious Johnson. Thanks for joining us, Demetrious.
Thanks for having me, guys.
What time is it with you at the minute?
Right now it's 9:02 a.m. in the morning.
My God, we got you out of bed at this time to do an interview.
That's okay, I don't mind. I enjoy doing interviews with you guys, and thanks for having me on.
Okay.
It's alright, it's 5 o'clock here, and I've just got out of bed, so we're all on the same
5 p.m. or 5 p.m.?
5 p.m.
Oh man, you guys
lazy.
Yeah, Brad is a little bit lazy. He's been labelled many things over the years, and lazy is definitely one of them. So, like I say, thanks for joining us, Demetrious. Hopefully we've not inconvenienced you too much on a Sunday morning. So, it's fantastic to speak to you. Obviously, you've got your big match coming up, October 1st, UFC on versus 6 against Dominick Cruz. You were last in action just a few months ago, defeating Miguel Torres at UFC 130. Many people counting you out before the fight. What was your thoughts on how the fight went for you that night?
I thought the fight with Miguel Torres went pretty well. I suffered a fractured fibula, and that kind of took me away from the game plan. The game plan was to stand up and bang with him and outbox him and kickbox him. But then I suffered that injury. Then I had to resort back to what I do best, which is wrestling and putting pressure on guys. And I was glad to come away with the victory. And now I'm back to 100% and get ready for Dominick Cruz.
Okay. I mean, you were saying about you had to revert back to your wrestling. Obviously, Dominick Cruz is well known for his stand-up game. Are you intending to go out and maybe try the stand-up game against Dominick, or are you going to go out and try and mix things up from the off this time?
I'm going to go out there and mix things up. In all my fights, I display, awesome wrestling, very good footwork, and obviously speed. And I'm going to pull a lot more tools out of my bag for this fight because I'm going to need to, because Dominick's a great champion, and I'm going to have to go out there and use everything I have in my arsenal to put him away that night.
Demetrious, it's been kind of a crazy ride for you, really. I mean, you've only been fighting mixed martial arts for a few years now, and 2010, I guess it was, you made your WEC debut, and less than 2 years later, you're in the UFC. You're fighting for the bantamweight world championship. How did you ever expect that all these crazy things would happen so soon in your career?
No. From the situation I came from and my background, usually people aren't very successful in doing things that make them successful in life. So it's a blessing, and I'm just here to do the best of the opportunity that's been presented to me, and I just can't wait to get in there and mix it up with Dominick Cruz. I
mean, you've taken on your last 2 fights, two of the biggest names in mixed martial arts. I mean, Kid Yamamoto and Miguel Torres, obviously, former champion, former pound-for-pound great. I mean, how crazy was it when you got the phone call from the UFC to say, look, you've got Kid Yamamoto next, you've got Miguel Torres next. How did you feel when you got that phone call, I guess?
I was excited. Matt called me, says, all right, we're already going over to, the UFC after I defeated Demetrious Page. And then we were waiting for a phone call to see we were going to fight. And then Matt knew a while before I did. And he goes, all right, well, I can tell you who you're going to fight, but you can't tell anybody. And I was like, who is it? And he goes, you're going to fight Kid Yamamoto. They're trying to get him over here right now with a contract and get him, squared away. But you'll be his first fight. So we'll start watching video and get after it. And then the whole Miguel Torres thing came up when I was supposed to face Renan Barrero. And then Brad Pickett injured his lower back, his L5 disc. And I always step up to the plate to fight. After I fought Nick Pace, they asked me if I wanted to step up and fight Demetrious Page because Eddie Wineland got hurt. I was like, I'll do it. I'm always in shape 24/7, so I can always take a fight. And then when they say, would you like to fight Miguel Torres? I was like, definitely. I'll step up and fight him. And I was more concerned about Renan Barrero. I was like, well, who's going to fight Renan Barrero? He needs to fight. They're like, don't worry, they'll take care of him. And I was like, all right, well, I'll sign me up for Miguel Torres, and I'll get in there and get after him. So it's always awesome when they give me a call because I never turn down a fight.
I mean, obviously, you're not going to be looking past this fight with Dominick Cruz. You can't possibly be doing that. But it's an interesting situation because, obviously, you're going to fight Renan Barrero. And the situation we've got now is that Brad Pickett is going to fight Hayden Barrow in England later in the year. And that's pretty much going to be a number one contenders fight. And, you know, obviously you have some history with Brad. You guys had an awesome fight back in your WC debut. Are you kind of maybe hoping that Brad wins that fight and you win that fight and you guys get to, you know, settle the score in the UFC?
Definitely. You know, I like Brad Pickett as a guy and a fighter, and I always want him to win because he trains hard and he's a good guy. And you know, I think before I can say that I'm gonna have to fight Brad Pickett again, I got to get past Dominick Cruz, and then after Dominick Cruz, the winner of Brian Bowles and Uriah Faber gets a crack at the winner of me or Dominick Cruz. So I got those two fights to look forward to first, and then obviously I would like to get back that loss for Brad Pickett, but it was a great loss. Brad Pickett has it, and I'm honored for him to have that only loss on my record because he's a tough guy, man. I mean, Brad Pickett's no joke, so it's kind of interesting to see what's going to happen between him and Barrow.
I mean, there's an important question here for us because obviously, we're over in England, and we have an interesting history with the UFC as far as getting the big title fights on our shores. So we're obviously we're really pulling for Brad Pickett to win his fight, and at some point down the line get a bantamweight title shot. And we've had UFC champions over here before in the past, and some guys have said they enjoyed fighting over here. Some guys, BJ Penn kind of came out a while back and said that he wasn't really interested in fighting in England. So I guess the question for us is, if you take the title from Dominick Cruz, would you fancy coming over to England to defend that belt against an Englishman on his home soil?
Oh, of course. I would love to go to England. I have lots of fans over there, and I've seen your guys' country on UFC Countdown, and it looks just beautiful. And that's one of my dreams, to go over there and travel. And I'm sure my fiance would love to go see it too.
Well, as long as you don't mind the rain, you'll have a great time.
Well, don't worry, because I'm from the rainy city. It rains all the time in Seattle, Washington.
Oh, you'll be used to
it. You were saying earlier in the interview, Demetrious, that you're obviously willing to step up at short notice and fight anybody. Just looking at your record since September, you fought 4 times already, and picked up 4 wins. How much do you put down the UFC actually granting you a title shot down to you being always ready to take a fight and willing to step in there and fight anybody?
I think me down to step up to fight anybody has propelled me up the ranks a lot faster than usually, because I'm really good about when I train, always staying in shape, never getting hurt, If Brad Pickett would never got hurt, he'd probably be fighting for the title right now. But, things happen when you're in training, depending on how hard you push, and freak accidents happen. I've just been blessed, to have a healthy body and to keep on training and have a desire to keep on always being in shape, because you never know when you're going to get that call. I can lose. Heaven forbid, I can lose to Dominick Cruz and Brian Bowles can get injured. But hey, we need somebody to step up. It's 2 weeks' notice. When you step and fight Uriah Faber, I was like, I would love to fight the California kid. I mean, it can just happen just like that. I mean, in this sport, anything can happen.
Okay, I mean, both of you have only lost 1 fight in your MMA career so far. I mean, have you had a chance to look at his loss to Uriah Faber back at WEC 26, and how much have you managed to take from that? How much have you managed to glean from that?
Well, that loss that he had to Uriah Faber in 2006, I think that was more like a fluke loss. He got caught in a scramble, and then, he just got punished for sticking his head out there. So there's not too much you can take from that fight. But all his recent fights, when he fought Uriah again, Joseph twice, Brian Bowles, I mean, all those fights, you can really take something from that because he really displays his great footwork in that one. He shows a lot more of his arsenal in all those fights. The Uriah Faber in 2006, he just gets caught and gets choked out in the first round. So you can't take too much from that.
How does he differ as an opponent to someone like Miguel Torres? Obviously, they've both got very good stand-up. Do you see Dominick Cruz has got better wrestling, and maybe Torres has a better submission game? How are you comparing the two?
If you compare Miguel Torres and Dominick Cruz, I would say Miguel Torres has a better lethal jiu-jitsu game on the ground. He's very dangerous off the back. No time to lay and pray in that guard because he's always throwing up submissions. With Dominick Cruz, he has a lot better stand up and he has very good footwork. And he knows he understands his range very well. Miguel Torres, he has decent stand up as well, but his recently changed not being so very aggressive has put I don't want to say a halt to it, but it's more easier to deal with. So they're both very great fighters. Dominick Cruz, he's obviously the champion, and there's a reason why. He's on a 9-fight win streak, and I'm just going to plan to go in there and do my best and put the pace on him and see what happens.
Demetrious, when you fought Kid Yamamoto, obviously, Kid was very well known. He'd been at the top of his game for many, many years. And for a lot of MMA fans, it was probably the first time they got to see you fight. And one of the craziest things, that I was hearing from a lot of people after that fight was they were like, man, this guy's takedowns are so fast. I mean, do you think that your takedowns and, particularly the speed at which you can take a guy down, do you think that's going to be the key to defeating Dominick Cruz, being able to put him on his back quickly and often?
I think the key of my speed for Dominick Cruz's fight is going to be huge because, I'm very fast, and I think I'm fast at least. And I'm always trying to get faster. And I don't think the wrestling's going to be key to put him on his back, Like I said, I got to go in there and mix it up. He's a great champion, and he's obviously knowing coming in this fight that I have very good wrestling. So he's going to be kind of tempted to expose his hips. So I try to go in there and dig in my tool bag, pull out all my tools and see which one works on him.
I mean, I sort of asked you earlier on about, how crazy it's been for you, starting your MMA career just a couple of years ago, and now you're in the UFC. And I think, one of the biggest things for a lot of fighters that's happened during that time is obviously, the UFC have merged the WEC in, so now you guys are getting the big spotlight. But one of the other things they've done is obviously, they've brought in this health insurance thing for fighters. I mean, from a fighter's perspective, how has that kind of affected your life, knowing that you've got that kind of security with the health insurance and everything that the UFC is doing for you guys at the moment?
It's awesome. I'm happy for myself and all the fighters around the world because there's fighters out there who train really hard for their fights and they get injured all the time. I mean, let's say Brad Pickett, when he got injured and he had to get surgery on his back, I mean, that could break his pockets. He can spend all the money he made in his whole career for fighting just to have surgery on his back. But now the UFC supports that and will cover that because, I think the UFC is now they always understand, but I think they got to the point now where they understand that when we're all getting ready for fights, we're doing everything we can. We're trying to destroy our bodies before we go to war with our opponent on that certain date that's been set for us. And for the UFC to do it is just, a revolution of the sport. Hopefully down the road, more things start to happen. Maybe we all start getting salary pay, like basketball players, yearly salary pay. The sport's always evolving, and it's always evolving with the combat and the fights you see in the ring or the cage, and it's also evolving behind scenes about insurance, taking care of fighters or whatever. So
it's interesting that you say that actually about things like maybe in the future that you guys get a salary and everything, and do you feel like do you feel like a fighter or do you feel like a professional athlete right now?
I honestly feel like a professional athlete because everybody can fight. I mean, my fiance can fight, my cats fight, and I just think like my coach Matt, he says, everybody is a fighter, but your skills are on a professional level where I can do things. I can do all kinds of things. Like I can go swim really good, and not to the professional level, but I'm just a well-rounded athlete. Like you can throw me a basketball, and you would think I could play basketball very well, or you can give me gymnastic rings, and I can perform a gymnastics rings. So that's sort of the way I like to look at it. And obviously, I am a fighter because I love to fight. And, I've been fighting my whole life. So you can look at it two ways.
You mentioned there, Matt, obviously, or presumably you're talking about Matt Hume there. Matt's obviously a legend in the world of mixed martial arts. How important a role has he played in your career and getting you to where you are right now?
Huge, huge role. He helps me out with my, everything. I mean, with my stand-up, my ground, and how I see the sport and how I shouldn't be one-minded. every time after I win a fight, every single time, I come back to the gym and I just get a whooping. Like, I mean, he just beats me up like no other. And then I'm like, after a while, I caught on, like after I win a fight, I'm like, oh, here we go. You ready, man? He goes, yep. And then he would just beat me up. And I'm like, ugh. And he goes, I got to open your mind up, You won this fight. You're high on the world, and I got to bring you back down to reality and let you know you're not nothing, and to open your mind again to get you back to learning, And Matt's always the best. And I think the true goal is to one day beat him and be as good as him. And it's going to take a long time to do it because he's like 44 years old, and he's still learning, and he's still real good, and he still puts it on me when we fight, so.
Demetrious, obviously the UFC have been talking for a while now about bringing in a flyweight division, and obviously your focus is currently on the bantamweight division. Obviously, because you're the number one contender and you're challenging for the title, you're hoping to pick up the title on October the 1st. But saying that, moving forward in the future, how interested would you be to drop down to 125 pounds? Because when you first came on the scene, I think you were earmarked as one of the standouts that probably would make the move down to 125 before many of the other fighters.
I've been very successful at 135, and I don't want to be the type of guy to take the easy road out or see people see me take the easy road out, go 125. Obviously, I've been fighting at 135 my whole career, and I've only had one loss, and that's to Brad Pickett. And I think, I made a lot of mistakes in that fight. And I'm obviously fighting for the world title right now at 135. So I think if, the UFC approached me and my manager and my coach about dropping to 125, we would discuss it with them to see if it's a very good move for me. But, as right now, I have my eyes set on, 135. If I lose the title fight to Dominick Cruz, I'm going to go back down and just keep on fighting. I lost once before, and that didn't, dampen my spirits on fighting at 135. So I think I'm just going to stay there at 135 until further notice.
Okay, one more thing that I want to ask you about before you go is just a little clip I want to play you. Here I come to save the day. Obviously, you're known as Mighty Mouse. Can you tell us where that comes from? And is there any truth behind the rumour that you used to dance around in your underpants as a small child singing that?
That rumor is negative.
Negative.
I've only watched 2 shows of Mighty Mouse, honestly. But the name originated from I still train with my coach Steve Skids, and he taught me everything from like the ground up, like all my basics, my basic boxing, jiu-jitsu, all that stuff. And I was the smallest guy in the gym all the time. And I can't choose who I go with, so I always didn't mind going with the bigger guys. And as you guys know, my structure is, 5'3". My ears stick out really bad, but I have small ears, my fiance says. And I would just go after people like they were my size. And my coach was like, yeah, that's right. Your name's going to be Mighty Mouse. And it just stuck. Like, everybody liked the name Mighty Mouse. I had many names before that, but Mighty Mouse seemed to stuck, and I kind of roll with it. And I just came to adapt to like it as well. So that's where it originated from.
Okay, it's good to clear up those rumours anyway, Demetrious.
Whoever told you those rumours are a lie, they're trying to set me up, you hear?
Yeah, we won't pass it on to anyone, we promise.
Thank you.
Have you got any sponsors or anything you want to mention before we finish?
Oh, definitely. I'm going to give a huge shout out to my partnership with the Xbox 360 and a sponsorship, Universal. And thanks to all my teammates, coaches, my gyms, my fiance Destiny, and thank you MMABay for having me on such as bright early morning on my Sunday afternoon or morning. Thank you.
Okay, fantastic.
So hang on. Let's rewind a second. Did they hook you up with like a free Xbox and free games and stuff at Xbox 360 guys?
Sometimes.
Oh, that's awesome. I need to get a sponsorship from Xbox.
That's the best sponsorship.
Michael, come on, get to work. Get me a sponsorship from Xbox.
I'm working on it. Next week, I'm phoning up. We'll see what we can do.
Okay, Demetrious, I'm going to ask you one thing really quickly before you go. Obviously, a lot of English MMA fans are going to be staying up very late tonight to watch Dan Hardy. It's a real do-or-die fight for him against Chris Lytle. Can we get your prediction just before we let you go on that fight tonight?
Okay, so Dan Hardy, he has very good stand-up. He understands his range very well, and I think he can knock out Chris Lytle because Chris Lytle, he said before he's not interested. I mean, he's interested in winning, but he said he's interested in more putting on great fights, and he knows to put on a great fight, he's got to go swing for the fences. Now, if Chris Lytle was a smart man and he wanted to make some moolah, I'll just take Dan Hardy down and out-wrestle him, submit him. But I don't think that's on his agenda tonight. If it is, and he goes out and takes him down, it's going to be a surprise. But I see Dan Hardy winning this by second round knockout or third round TKO due to dropping him and then finish and then following up. Or who knows, Dan Hardy might come out and display some wrestling, but I think that'd be bad because Chris Lytle has a dangerous ground game. So, like I said, I'm going to go with Dan Hardy on this fight. But anything can happen in the sport of MMA, so we'll have to see. I'll be up watching it too.
That's great, Demetrious. Really appreciate you joining us today for the interview. And like I say, apologies for the time difference. 9 a.m. on a Sunday. Everybody should be sleeping, really. Unless your name's Brad Wharton, and then he's sleeping at 5 p.m. on a Sunday. So, Demetrious, can you take us to break? Can you say I am Demetrious Johnson, and you're listening to MMABay Radio?
Definitely. What's going on, guys? My name is Demetrious Mighty Mouse Johnson. You guys listen to MMA Radio.